Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Um, Good evening to all of you who are joining us from all over the world. Welcome to the IWRA Pre-Congress Inter-Taskforce webinar. Thank you for joining us today. This is a webinar hosted by the International Water Resource Association, a globally recognized member-based nonprofit organization with a strong emphasis on collaboration between science and policy. IWRA serves as a knowledge forum dedicated to addressing pressing water challenges. IWRA's overarching goal is to improve the understanding of water issues and foster sustainable water use and management worldwide. Through a multifaceted approach encompassing education, research, and information exchange, IWRA strives to facilitate informed decision-making and promote effective water management. Without further ado, I would like now to give the floor to our moderator, Rhea Stefan, IWRA's project officer, who will introduce the webinar's topic as well as our speakers. The floor is yours, Rhea. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arturo, for this introduction. Dear participants, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this pre-Congress Inter-Taskforce webinar. My name is Raya Marina Stefan, and I am here welcoming you in my quality of Vice Chair in charge of task forces within the Task Force and Chapters Committee at IWRA's board. As Arturo just told you, IWRA is an association driven by its members and who have established task forces for some activities and based on some themes. Our current task forces are the Early Career and Young Professional Task Force, the Groundwater Task Force, the Smart Water Management Task Force, the Land for Flood Task Force, the Water and Climate Change Task Force, which I happen to co-chair, the Water Quality Task Force, Water Security Task Force, Water SDGs, and the last one, the Newborn Islands Water Task Force. As you see, our task forces cover a diversity of topics related to water management, but also interrelated topics. The task forces organize their own activities. They have online meetings between themselves, and also they organize activities such as they initiate webinars, they organize special sessions at online conferences or at conferences where they can be in person. They have organized podcasts, they publish articles in our flagship journal, Water International, and they even produce special issues. At the occasion of IWRA forthcoming 19th Congress, which will be held in Marrakesh, Morocco, from 1st to 5 December this year, the task forces have decided to join forces and have organized this webinar based on the Congress's theme. The webinar will actually be moderated by Kola Karim, who chairs the Smart Water Management Task Force, and by Riwa Asi, chairing the Early Career and Young Professionals Task Force. As we will discuss about the Congress, I will now pass the floor to Rabia Mokhtar, co-chair of the Congress ISC and vice president of IWRA. He will introduce to us the Congress. He will introduce to us the Congress. Thank you for being here with us, and thank you for your attention. Rabia, please, 5 minutes.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Raya, for the introduction. And thank you, Rewa and Kola, along with Raya, for organizing this. And thank you all for the executive office who made this possible. I was just going through the chat and see the breadth of this participants. We have over 70, great, from all over the world. So thank you for taking the time. And I do hope that this would be a beneficial. And for those of you who have not registered yet and are able to register for the Congress, this would be a push for you to see the breadth and the wealth of information that will be there and the expertise that will be highlighted. As many of you know, that the Congress is one of the flagships of the IWRA, and this is the 19th World Water Congress. We will be hosted by the Ministry of Water and works at in Morocco, in Marrakesh. It's a beautiful city. it's a great venue to converge and share and learn from each other. Next. So briefly, the objective of the Congress is to provide, as mentioned earlier, to provide a platform to share knowledge, innovation, and research findings from across the water sector and beyond, to promote collaboration between governments, academia, civil society, and the private sector, address complex water challenges through cross-sectoral system-level approaches, and to highlight Morocco's expertise in managing water resources, particularly in arid environment, desalination, and unconventional water resources. As many of you know, that the IWRA is a platform for science to policy. So there's a lot of scientists, policymakers, decision makers, as well as private sector and the not-for-profit organization and civil society. So the Congress will generate output, including Congress declaration summarizing critical recommendations and knowledge products. And this is something that IWRA is very big on, especially with the current administration within IWRA. We are about generating knowledge. And I think this is something that will come clear in some of the outcome that we have. The Congress theme, we have 7 themes, starting with the water governance, financing, and planning during uncertainty, the water, energy, food, ecosystem nexus, the water security and water-related risks, water quality and opportunities, and One Health opportunities, water for sustainable development, groundwater challenges and opportunities, and last but not least is towards innovation and smart water future. I'd like to really highlight innovation specifically, that it is highlighted in the title of the Congress. So innovation is something that we're striving to. And the other thing that I'd like to highlight, as you will see, system approaches to water management is all over through the topics. This is an overview of the Congress. There's a 5-day Congress followed by a field tour, cultural tour. Morocco, and in particular Marrakesh, offers a lot of that, and I hope you will be able to enjoy it. So starting in day 1, every day, except for the last day, we have a high-level panel. We have between 7, 8, and 10 parallel regular sessions and special sessions throughout the day. We do have I'd like to really also emphasize that we have in addition to the regular sessions, a high-level panel and special sessions this year, and for the first time, we have initiated an early career lightning talk. And that is an opportunity for early career scientists, early career professionals to be a part of what we're going to call a competition. So the evening of the second day, we are hosting a 2-hour competition. It's a 3-minute for every poster that's participating, and we're going to be announcing the winners of that in the following day. So this is the week, as I said, and of course there is a general assembly that all of you members are invited to attend. This year also, this Congress, we are introducing a ministerial roundtable. I believe that the last count I have is more than 2 handful of ministers have already confirmed their participation, and they will be engaged in a dialogue. And that dialogue will result in a statement that we're hoping that the ministers will converge into a statement that will be part of the declaration. Kind of reiterating what I just mentioned, there's a plenary session, high-level panel, and of course, the flagship award for IWRA is a Vintage Chow Memorial Lecture Award, which will be at the closing ceremony. We have parallel sessions, including regular and special sessions, poster presentation throughout the day. So the way we're going to conduct poster presentation is that will highlight a theme, for the Congress that will be highlighting some of the posters that are selected throughout the day. And we have, as I mentioned, early career lightning talk the evening of the second day. And that's inviting early career professionals to compete for a prize. And it's a secret. I'm not going to tell you what the prize is, so I'd like you to participate. We have a lot of social events that are also planned along with field trips. So here is a kind of a cap on the high-level and ministerial roundtable. So high-level panel 1 focuses on the interconnectivity of the system approach to water management. As I mentioned earlier, it's my pleasure to be co-chairing that with Mr. Abdelaziz, who's the Deputy Minister in Morocco, along with Belgi Kokemi and Bernd Gowik. The second high-level panel will focus primarily on the 2030 water agenda and beyond, co-chaired by Alice Orelli and Tatiana Miskova, along with Akhisa Bahri and Mohammed Diata. So this is the high-level panel directly linked to the UN agenda. Could you go back? High-level panel 3. Looking at the global water governance and in a changing world, that will be IMBO with our colleague Eric Tardo, Oriana from OECD, and Abu Amani from UNESCO will be coordinating this session. High-level panel 4 will focus on accelerating innovation and the water sector. So this is something also that I did mention earlier, that innovation is a high priority, and the nature-based solutions to artificial intelligence, the coordinated by Andrea Eriksson, Ellen Messonnier, and Henk Oliver, along with Ushi Shi. The round table I mentioned will bring together ministers, as I mentioned earlier. So there has been 50 invitations, but I would say at the moment, more than 10 ministers have already, and expected that number to grow. So the idea for the ministerial roundtable is to provide the ministers with the space, safe space to dialogue, to discuss the future of water and some of these challenges. The list is more than what we see on the screen as we speak. Next. So this is something that I'd like to invite all of you who qualify. And again, early career is not age dependent, as you would imagine. It's a self-declaration. You declare yourself as an early career. Of course, I will not be eligible for that. I would love to be eligible. I'm not. So you declare yourself as an early career and you participate. So I encourage you to register and be part of this competition, which is a new to the Congress. Again, the General Assembly would be during the last, so Wednesday in the evening, and invite all of you to participate. It's an opportunity to share what's update. In fact, there's a lot of things that we have been launching, including a strategic planning and as well restructuring of the committee that Raya mentioned. The task force and the chapters committee is a committee that I chair, and there's a lot of new changes to this to better engage with the community of task forces and chapters. So all of that, along with some of the new structuring that we are going through, will be discussed at the General Assembly and shared with all of you. And we have also a lot of new members in our executive office that would love for all of you to meet. Other ways to engage would be the exhibition, side event, and sponsorship. Please share that information with the wider community. I did not mention side event. Usually those side events are parallel to all the program that's happening, and they're organized fully by a sponsor. And we have several side events. I think the last time I counted over 20 of those side events from all over the world. We've got an exhibition hall and, of course, an opportunity to be a sponsor. The other flagship events, of course, this is something that we had an earlier event. This is would be the second, will be announcement of the Island Water Congress. We will be announced during the Congress. So we look forward for announcing where the host of the second island. And again, the Faroe Island was the first island conference, which was very, very successful. And building on that Faroe Island Congress, we will be announcing the second. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the time, and I hope to see many of you in Marrakesh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rabi, for this introduction and for setting the stage and providing us an overview of what we'll uncover in the 19th World Water Congress in December. And I would also like to thank our participants for joining us today and for joining us for our journey to Marrakesh. Our webinar today will delve into the main theme of the Congress, which is water and changing world, innovation and adaptation, as Dr. Rabi just presented. And with our esteemed panelists, we will be exploring topics on the governance, the climate resilience, sustainable development, and also smart water innovation. This is a chance for you to also meet our members, like few of our members from the task forces, and to also engage together in the discussion. So before we delve deeper into our presentations, we're happy to see who's joining us today. I know the chat box has been, I'm reading through them, where we're joining also from different places of this world. People are waking up so early today to be with us today, so I would like to thank you for that. So I'd like to just ask you to engage in our poll here. As you continue writing in our chat box, if I can ask you to engage in our poll and tell us, where are you joining us from? What is your career stage? And if you will be in attending the Congress this year in December. I believe there's a poll here. So yes, please engage there, and we'll see. I see that already participants started to answer, and I'm happy to see the diversity that we have from our career states that we're joining. We have early career professionals, we have senior, and we have mid-career professionals. This is what we enjoy about IWRA, is this diversity that we offer in the water sector and looking at the overarching themes of the water, and also being diversity. We have diversity from different regions, and I'm happy to see that almost 56% of the people joining us today will be attending the Congress in December, and we also have some that are not sure, and we hope that the others would get the also chance to be joining us for this year and the upcoming years' congresses. So here you can see that the results, and so also I'd like to thank our panelists today for joining us. So today we're having a Inter-Taskforce panelist joining us today, Dr. Malcolm Gander. Dr. Malcolm is a consultant in earth sciences, and he has over 35 experience in global experiences in the hydrogeology and environmental manager, and he's overseeing the protection and restoration of drinking water quality, and he is also the member of the climate change task force with IWRA. With Malcolm, we also have Ronald Rufarin. He is a deputy dean for outreach and internationalization and a senior lecturer in the Faculty of Food and Agriculture at the University of West Indies. His experience spans over the disaster risk resilience, sustainable land and water resource management, as well as agri-environmental disaster risk and climate resilience, with a specialized focus vulnerabilities and adaptations needs of the Caribbean. This is what his presentation will also focus on today. And he is also the member of the First Islands Water Task Force member. We also have with us Niall Grigg. Dr. Niall Grigg is a professor of the Civil and Environmental Engineering at Colorado State University. And and his area of focus are water resources, engineering and management, urban water systems, infrastructures and utilities, and public administrations. He's also a member of the Smart Water Management Task Force. And last but not least, we have here with us our IWRA's World Water Envoy, Ayan Christ. She was selected together with 3 other World Water Envoys, and the World Water Envoy is a program or an award-winning initiative created to hear stories from the young professionals to showcase their efforts in building the solutions in the water sectors in their region. And we're happy to have them with us in the Congress this year. And so Ayan is a hydraulic engineer with a strong passion for sustainable water management. Through her active role in different international water and climate initiatives, she has a deep commitment to solving the global water challenges. Thank you so much, our esteemed panelists, for having you here with us today. And I'd like to also first welcome Dr. Malcolm Gander, who will be presenting a case study on La Guajira on the severe water shortage and policy assessment climate change. Just being mindful of the time, Malcolm, if we can be, appreciate if we can stick.
Absolutely. Welcome, everyone. I wanted to talk about La Guajira in Colombia, and the talk today is going to be cutting across several themes: innovation, water security, science, and climate change. As you can see, Colombia is at the north end of South America, of course, and La Guajira specifically is a peninsula, and it's arid to semi-arid, and it's subjected to some unique climate characteristics that we're going to explore a little bit more. So in La Guajira, there's about 300,000 people, and these are indigenous people who are subjected to a pretty severe water shortage, and this is often exacerbated by climate effects such as El Nino, the warming of the Pacific Ocean, and there are also climate change effects from the buildup of carbon dioxide, fossil fuels. So what I wanted to focus more than anything on this talk is that we have some anthropogenic effects, which is, the burning of fossil fuels, on top of this periodic El Nino effect. And this has resulted in severe droughts, lack of water for the indigenous people, and the temperatures, of course, are rising there like they are everywhere. The rainfall there is only 1 to 2 inches per year, and we have areas in the Southwest United States as a point of comparison, such as Las Vegas. It rains 4 inches a year there, so it's even lower here in La Guajira. And we have water shortages there that are resulting in child mortality rates much higher than the norm in Colombia and much higher in other places globally. This is just some photos that we can run through here, where we have these Yahwehs that are low water quality. People have to walk 15 to 30 minutes to get there. And this is unfortunately their only water source. So near the end of the talk, we're working with some other locals and regional people to provide a water alternative, some rather inexpensive mechanisms where people can have filtration devices. And these are just examples of the severe drought and what people have to go through to get water. Unfortunately, it's very distressing. Next. Unfortunately, the government has other priorities. They have brought water to this region for years, periodically via truck, but it happens very unmethodically, and this needs more support from United Nations Development Program, which it gets periodically, but it's not enough. So this is what I was speaking about earlier. We have the El Nino effect. We have La Nina in some parts of the world. Here we have El Nino. It's severe, more in warming of surface water that results in more prolonged drought, or when it rains, we have extreme rain events and there's more runoff and there's less infiltration of the groundwater, because there are wells, but there aren't enough wells in this region, and they're left with surface water, which ends up to have poor water quality. This is one of the main messages that I wanted to talk about, that the climate change exacerbates this periodic El Nino effect. And going forward, the general circulation models, which the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has been perfecting quite well for the last 10, 12 years, we're going to see 30 to 40% decreases in annual rainfall in this already severely impacted area. So obviously, hopefully there's going to be at least a decrease in the generation of fossil fuels globally. Ongoing issue. Next. So we actually have increased drought over the last 10 years, but curiously, we have slightly increased rainfall, because that's from the evaporation, the evapotranspiration that is going on. So certain areas such as La Guajira, it rains more, which is counterintuitive, but it is an effect of El Nino and climate change. Even though the rainfall has actually gone up because of these effects, we're having more severe runoff. And the upshot is there's less water in the surface water bodies, there's less infiltration into the groundwater. So we are seeing this not only in La Guajira, but in other latitudes. And on top of that, we have anthropogenic effects, like the largest coal mine in Latin America is in the southern part of La Guajira, and they're using enormous amounts of water every day. So that is just further negatively impacting the water supply for the indigenous people out in the villages. So here is the water devices that we are promoting mass production of, and it is something that can be operated without electricity or energy. It's just hand powered, and local people can generate 10 to 15 to 20 liters of water a day. And the cost, in US dollars is something like $60. So we're working with various agencies to bring more water to these people through these devices. Then the next slide has a picture of it. So this is a small effort that we're doing, but it's something potentially that could reach a lot of people. And I think that is pretty much it. And I'd be happy to field questions later. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Malcolm. It was really an interesting piece, and I'd like to inform everyone that you can drop in your questions in the chat box. We will attend to all the questions at the end of the panels, at the end of the panel discussion, or while we have our panel discussion, we'll have series of questions and answers. So without further ado, I would like us to proceed to the next panelist. And Dr. Ronald, can you proceed with your presentation, please?
Sure. Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you guys are. Thank you for the opportunity, and it's really a pleasure to be presenting here on behalf of, well, I would say I would do this as a member of the task force, right? So I am Ronald Ruknarain. I'm from the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus in Trinidad. So it's quite early in the morning here. So I'm not sure, we have persons joining us from all over the world. So as I said before, welcome. And I take this opportunity to thank IWRA for organizing and putting this session together. So my presentation will focus on water resource sustainability in Caribbean SIDS. And as you guys know, and everybody will have heard, that Caribbean SIDS are considered to be one of the most vulnerable regions in the world when it comes to climate change and so on. And just for those who may not be familiar with the Caribbean, the countries in the Caribbean Sea, it's a region in the Atlantic between the North and South America and east of Central America, and in which many tropical island nations are positioned in close proximity. And while we share a lot of similarities in terms of our size and our vulnerabilities, there are still some unique considerations across islands. Some are volcanic in nature, some have limited surface water, some have quite a lot of surface water. And in addition to that, you have situations where you have limited natural resources with heavy reliance on unsustainable human activities because of our limited space and our developmental profile. Most of our islands, there's a concentration of populations on the coastal zones. Most of our capital cities or ports, etc., all on the coastal zones, and the developmental profile followed that management strategy in a sense. And then you also have high susceptibility to frequent and intense tropical storms, which is a problem because of where we are located in hurricane belt, and being developing countries, there's not a significant amount of enforcement of building codes and so on. So many times when you have the occurrence of something like a hurricane, category 3, 4, 5, there is significant damage. In 2017, the island of Dominica was totally devastated, wiped out, flattened by a hurricane, Maria. And it cost, I think, 226 times their GDP. We also have a strong dependence on water resources for fresh water that are highly sensitive to sea level changes, meaning that there is the possibility for saltwater intrusion and so on and so forth that compromises our freshwater resources. There's also relative isolation and great distance from major markets, affecting competitiveness in trade, which affects our developmental profile and our economies. And of course, we have extreme openness of small economies that are highly sensitive to external shocks. We felt the effects of this during COVID, and we also had, even currently with the trade issues and tariffs and so on being introduced, all of these things have impacts on us, right? The main concerns when it comes to climate variability and change is that all predictive models are telling us that the Caribbean will get drier and there will be more intense wet seasons. And we're already starting to see the effects of that in a sense, because you have no major changes in total rainfall being demonstrated just yet. But what you're seeing is that the intensity and distribution is significantly affected. So you will have intense showers where you could have 20 inches of rain in an hour. And then you have the possibility of drought, particularly for the northern Caribbean islands, many of which do not have a significant amount of surface water. And drought will obviously reduce recharge and water quality in some cases, sea level rise and saltwater intrusion. And then generally, because we do not have proper monitoring and data collection across all the islands, there's concerns with the accuracy of projections because we don't have complete data sets. Next slide. Right, so current status, water quality and health. So 85% of wastewater is untreated in the Caribbean. So that's something to note, right? Many of you will come to the Caribbean and enjoy its oceans, and it's a good thing. We have some level of treatment, but a lot of it still needs to be improved. We have agriculture runoff contaminates water. There's also poor storage leads to dengue, gastroenteritis outbreaks, and so on. In terms of water stress and water scarcity, only Bahamas, Dominica, Jamaica, and Trinidad are above the water stress threshold. Barbados and Antigua face absolute water scarcity, and these things have, it impacts on our tourism and urbanization. So, many of the countries in the Caribbean, their economies are based on tourism. Then what are the opportunities? We started in many countries to promote water conservation and metering. Metering is such an important concept because if you don't have metering, you are not sure of your consumption. And in many cases, you have issues with non-revenue water, water being lost and unaccounted for water and so on. And in some cases, I could use the example of Trinidad, our tariffs are rather outdated. Meaning, I think Trinidad has one of the lowest rates of paying for water in terms of tariffs across the world. Yeah. You also have expansion. Sorry, that's a little too fast for me. Right. You also have expanding rainwater harvesting and wastewater reuse through a Crew Plus project, which was supported by Jeff and UNEP and so on. Many of our countries have started to develop standards for wastewater reuse and for integrating that into agriculture and landscaping uses, right? And expanding rainwater harvesting, of course. And then implementing ecosystem-based solution and using, to some level, the detection technology if they are smart, if they are equipped for smart metering and so on. Next slide. Right, institutional and policy reform. The Caribbean has developed a regional framework for IWRM supported by GWPC and the OACS. We are in the process in some countries of updating outdated legislation. Some legislation in the water sector is as old as the 1960s, right? Then you have to encourage public-private partnerships for infrastructure renewal and invest in hydrometric data networks, which has started to happen again through another project called CFUSE, supported by UNDP. Yeah, next. Right, some regional initiatives now. So I gave you all an overview. This is just a map you could go on. This is just a placeholder slide, if you want to call it that. So we are looking at natural infrastructure, emphasizing the role of wetlands, mangroves, forests, flood mitigation, and so on. And it's a feasible solution in countries that do not have access to a lot of money. Then land use planning and zoning is something that we need to improve. In many cases, our planning has not been the best, and we are recognizing that, for instance, you will have excessive amounts of rainfall and some of our dams are empty because the watershed dynamics has changed over time because of the development and so on. And then you have community-based disaster risk reduction, working with communities to help them understand conservation and disasters in general. Next slide. Right, so this is an example. This is actually the wastewater reuse standard that was developed for Trinidad and Tobago, specific for agriculture and landscaping uses, and just outlines the process. We don't have much time, so I can't go through the entire process, but basically it went from identifying a need, a series of consultations and reviews, etc. for documents, and now the draft standard is gazetted for use. Next. Right, this is an example of flood risk assessments that we have done for Trinidad and Tobago. You have exposure, vulnerability, and risk being identified here. Next. The WASA, which is part of in Trinidad, has done an operational control center. Very, very high tech. But of course, there are still some kinks to level out. But basically, all our water supply and so on can be monitored from this control room. So it's leveraging advanced technology from improved water and wastewater management. And it offers a glimpse into the future of, as I said before, it's operational, but there are still some things that needs to be improved. Next. right? And these are just a host of regional initiatives. So the Caribbean recognizes its position, and we had a series of initiatives in the last, I would say, decade, right? Supported by various agencies. So you have water academies, capacity building training. There was also water information management systems. You have flood and hydrological modeling, increased installation of weather stations, regional frameworks for IWRM, as well as water safety, supported by organizations that you're seeing here. So you have CAFA, OECS, GWPC, and so on. Next. Right? This here is an interagency coordination mechanism that was developed to respond to flooding. So you can go to the next slide quickly. Right. So this is just, it looks very complicated, but basically it's looking at disaster risk reduction and coordination between state agencies in terms of how information should flow in order for us to respond effectively in the event of a flooding event that could cause harm, etc. So our coordination between our Met Office, our Disaster Preparedness Office, etc. Right, next. Right. So how do we address our vulnerability? Too fast. One slide back. No. All right, it's okay. How do you could go forward. This is an example of nature-based solutions. I think, I don't know, the slide that I want is somewhere in between the ones that you are showing. But that's okay. You could go to the end because I think persons would have gotten a gist of this. Proceed. Right, so the last slide before this one, please. Right, so how do we address our vulnerability from the water sector? We strengthen climate resilience through improved infrastructure. We diversify and strengthen water resource management, as I demonstrated with all the activities. We promote ecosystem-based solutions, and we develop and enforce adaptation policies. I firmly believe that vulnerable states should be focused on adaptation rather than mitigation when it comes to climate change. And you could go to the final slide now. Right, I leave you guys with a quote. So water resources in the Caribbean they are a library of resilience, and they hold stories of droughts endured, floods survived, and lessons learned, and also lessons ignored. I thank you for the opportunity, and I welcome any questions that you may have later on in the process. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Ronald, for the judicious use of time and for the interesting piece. It's really, really well packed. So please be informed that you can drop your questions in the chat box, and well, we do not want to waste so much time. We'll proceed to the next presenter, and that's Dr. Neil. So Dr. Neil will be presenting on smart and sustainable water innovations. Neil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Kola, and thanks to everyone for organizing this great meeting here to precede the World Congress. So these are my topics, as Kola pointed out. It's one of the overarching themes, and Robbie mentioned innovation, and he mentioned the systems approach, and those approaches are really needed to deal with all these many issues that we have identified today, and we have all over the world. So let's skip through this slide, go to the next slide, and then skip this one too. Now, if there's always a lot of discussion about the 2030 agenda, and we're getting closer to 2030 all the time, but one of the things that you notice when you are thinking about water is it really cuts across practically all 17 of the SDGs. At Colorado State University, where I teach, I focus on the systems approach, and I'm always looking for connections that you can make between these different objectives that we have. And it's a really complex arena to be doing education, because you have the connections between these different agendas, but you also have different contextual situations around the world where you have to bring in cultural issues, political issues, and all of that, as well as technical issues. And it makes a great challenge for those of us who are in education, but also practice of water resources. So when we start talking about the systems approach, you're right away talking about integration of different kinds. And I'll speak in a few minutes about the integrated water resources management. But when you think about it, practically all of the different systems and sectors can be viewed in terms of the interactions among them. And one of those, for example, is health. So they have over in the health sector, they've got a concept that they call One Health. And it's a way to bring together all of the different parts of it to help us to remain healthy despite our situations there. Now, just in terms of public health, one of the big surprises to me in recent years has been how political public health is. The COVID outbreak it showed that to all of us. And here in the United States, we have, a lot of conflicts over public health right now. And I suppose in the end, the conflicts are good if they shake out some good truth, but sometimes it seems like we're moving backwards rather than forwards there. So anyway, the One Water approach, which is mainly a term that I'm seeing in the United States, is directly aimed at the One Health approach, because what we're trying to do with the One Water approach is we're trying to link together the different sources and uses of water, whether it's drinking water or whether it's recreational water, fishing water, wastewater, whatever. Next slide, please. So the high-level panels at the Congress are aimed at these systems approaches and integrated approaches. And if you go down and you look at the different topics there, you've got all of the things that we've been working on for years, the UN system has been working on for years. And the challenge is how to move the needle ahead despite all of these obstacles that we have. And it's really great to have a lot of younger members who will now learn about all these complexities and start putting their thinking to work to give us some solutions that have so far eluded us. Next slide, please. So now when you think about it, in the design of the Congress is really good. And if you think about those high-level panels that I just showed you, and then you think about the thematic areas, which are the kinds of areas that I would be focusing on in my coursework at the university. You see those thematic areas, they cover sort of the elements of the bigger systems that we have there. And of the three topics that go to my panel, I've shown the One Water as the integration. I've shown the Smart Water is another type of, a type of innovation. And then the ASR, which is the aquifer storage and recovery, is just a focal point for the groundwater discussion. Now notice when we start talking, let's go back to that slide, please. Notice that the connections and those green lines that I've got there, One Water that I just showed you, which is the integration there, that's connected down here to the One Health and the water quality. So you have a connection there. Smart Water, that's an innovative approach. And we saw in the previous presentation, we saw the control room of, the water system there and flooding, climate prediction, all of that kind of thing. That's all Smart Water. That's all toward this innovation in the smart water future as a thematic area. And then finally, the Act for Storage and Recovery. I noticed one of the questions on the chat was, how do you deal with drought? Well, one of the ways you can deal with drought is to store water underground when you have an abundance of it and then pump it out later when the drought occurs. So it's an innovation and it's a groundwater challenge and opportunities. Next slide, please. So water resources management is really the main core of what we're trying to do. It involves engineers, scientists, social scientists, people involved in policy, all kinds of different things. And I wanted to share with you what I've experienced in trying to use it as a mechanism for teaching. And I go to the action hub of the Global Water Partnership to get case studies and good thinking. And it's just a great example of how international groups can come together and figure out how to do things with good methods. And the good methods are really great. The only challenge in the end is to get people to accept those and to deal with a political system. Next slide, please. So now just to sort of wrap up with a few discussions here of some of these case studies that are in the Global Water Partnership Action Hub. These case studies have actually been evolving for a good while, and we need more good case studies, because a case study is a way that you can focus on exactly what's going on with both the technical issues and also the contextual situation. For example, in the ground, go back to that one, please. Excuse me. In the case of the groundwater, this is just one of many case studies. We have many here in the United States, but here's one on transboundary challenges to manage this aquifer called the Guarani Aquifer down in Iguazu Falls, southern Brazil and Paraguay and all of that there. Next slide, please. Okay, now smart water, this is even more expansive for us to look at. And Kola mentioned the Smart Water Task Force there, and there are many examples of that. I've been working on that myself as it relates to urban distribution systems mainly. But there's a case study from China where you can see the control board up there. You can see all of the people there involved in maybe applying a digital twin, which is a new innovation in smart water. And then you see our case study report, the first one from the Smart Water Task Force that Rayo mentioned a few minutes ago. Next slide, please. Finally, the integration approach. Many case studies, everything practically has some degree of integration there. That's just one that I'm showing there. Urban problem with the high income, low income parts of a city, how you deal with all those issues. Next slide, please. So I just finished this. My last slide is just a few questions and answers. I'll leave this up here for just a second. And in the case that any of the participants are interested in asking these questions or to have a more discussion of these questions, first one about the stakeholders. A lot of times the stakeholders they have a lot of power, but other stakeholders have little power. So how do you make that work so it's good for society? Second is building capacity. Everyone knows that we have plenty of great tools, but having the capacity to management organizational capacity is a real challenge. Which innovations are the best ones? Which ones really have the payoff? And then finally, how could IWRA members collaborate more in all of these different areas? So those are just a few suggested questions. And I thank you all for your attention, and I'm trying to observe my time and pass the ball back to Kola.
Oh, thank you so much, Neil. I think you did a fantastic job with the time management part. And thank you so much for delivering this interesting piece. So please hang in there while we continue. And when we get to the panel discussion part, we will have the questions and answers as well. So in the meantime, we will proceed to the next presenter, and that is the IWRA World Envoy. And that's Ayan. Please, you have the floor. She'll be presenting on towards innovation and a smart water future. Please proceed.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I would like to share my screen.
Kola.
You should stop your...
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So, can you see my screen?
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me in this interactive session. So the outline of my presentation, first I will talk about the challenges in the water sector. Then we'll see the innovation, different types of smart water systems that could be adapted, and natural-based solutions. We'll see water management, and finally adaptation. So the global water challenge, we have like 2 billion people lack safe drinking water, leading to disease like cholera. 30% of treated water also lost through leaks. Aging infrastructure and poor maintenance result in massive non-revenue water losses every year. And the demand expected to rise 55% by 2050, driven by industrialization, energy needs, and urbanizations. We can also find more challenges like high cost of new technologies, data security and privacy, lack of skilled professionals, and resistance to change in traditional utilities. So what is a smart water future? First, we can see it in different types. Use of data, for example, sensors and automation. Smart system use connected sensors like automated valves and pumps to optimize operations in real time. So we are reducing human error and energy cost. We have remote monitoring and real-time data collection. So this will help us to continuous tracking of water quality, pressure, and flow, helps detect leaks early and prevent contamination. We have data-driven decision-making. So utilities and cities rely on analytics and predictive models to prioritize investments and maintenance. Digital twins simulate water systems. So these virtual models simulate how water systems will behave under different conditions, helping engineers test solutions before implementation. We have smart irrigation systems, so equipped with, for example, soil moisture and weather sensors. They adjust watering automatically, reducing water consumption by up to 30%. And finally, the AI flood and hydrology. So these models analyze rainfall, topography, and sensor data to forecast floods and manage stormwater and protect urban infrastructure. So due to time constraints, I will develop a smart water monitoring system for wastewater management. Here we can see a pumping station with two pumps and with a level sensor. So this level sensor will send a command to pump 1 when we get to the level 1 to start operating. And of course, we are pumping out the effluents to the waste, for example, water treatment plant. At level 2, the same thing, we will get, the pump 2 will get a command to start operating. And when we get for the critical level, the level sensor will send a alarm that we should intervene. For example, we should send a technician to check what is the problem is. And sometimes we can find it's not just about problem in pumps, but maybe in the sensor level. What is the importance of using this smart monitoring systems? So it identify the problems in real time by getting alarms. And it also helps us track the number of pump starts, the duration of each pump, and basically estimate the pump's lifespan and when it needs to be replaced. At the same time, it lets us calculate the flow rate going through the station, and also it reduces the electricity consumption. Here we can see also tools for like level sensor that we used on my sector at SAR. Also, we can have two types of H2S detectors that helps us also to know if we have issues with the release of the critical gas hydrogen sulfide. And this gas can destroy pipelines and degrades also concrete, which is obviously not good. And that's why it's very important to install these detectors in places at risk of gas formation. They help us to detect the gas. They also help us also to maybe think about the implementation of an advanced treatment methods, like adding, for example, ferric chloride polymer. And finally, also, I'd like to put here some list of programs that could be used for digital twins modeling. That, as I said before, it helps us to understand how water systems will behave under different conditions. We can also see some natural-based solutions like wetlands, the raised wetlands, the green spaces. So the key benefits of these natural-based solutions is first, we are filtering pollutants from rainwater and recharge groundwater and supports local ecosystems. We can also reduce urban flooding by capturing stormwater during heavy rains and which helps us to absorb rainwater and reducing runoff and flood risks. It also creates recreational of green spaces, as we see here, for example, in green spaces, to enhance urban life and biodiversity. So it will be a microhabitats for insects and birds in cities. In the water management, we can see that sometimes it is very important to reuse and recycle wastewater. So we can use it in a resource for irrigation. So also we are reducing pressure on freshwater resources. And also we can use rainwater harvesting system with collecting and storing rainwater from rooftops or surface runoff can provide a decentralized and sustainable water source. And finally manage, for example, aquifer recharge by directing surface water or treated wastewater into the ground to store excess water for dry periods. And sometimes we have a lot of resources in a region, but with a bad management. And that's why it is very important to have laws and regulations that are properly enforced to protect this resource. So it's not just what we need innovation in the water sector, but also adaptation. For the adaptation, I will talk about 3 points. The first one is governance and integrated water management. So institutions that coordinate across sectors, share data, and involve communities in decision-making. This adaptation requires cooperation not only between countries sharing rivers, but also between ministries, municipalities, and citizens. Policy and risk planning, so anticipating future risks rather than reacting after disaster. This adaptation is not about fighting nature, it's about planning with the nature and designing flexible systems that evolve with new realities. For the third point, climate resilience and local action. So at the heart of adaptation and are communities that turn policies into practice. So adaptation succeeds when governance, policy, and community action converge. So combining human knowledge with natural systems. So in the conclusion, I'd like to say that a smart water future starts with smart choices today. Innovation is the how, and adaptation is the why and where. So without governance and finance, pilots never scale. Also, combining innovation, technology, and cooperation, we can create a smarter and more sustainable water future. Cooperating over water is a peace policy as much as an environmental one. So as an envoy participating in this Congress, I'm really looking forward to meeting experts and policymakers, exchanging on innovative solutions, and discussing how we can adapt these ideas into practical governance. So if you'd like to share your thoughts or connect further, feel free also to reach me out on LinkedIn, and I'd love to hear your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hayan, for your excellent presentation. And thank you so much for being time conscious. Hold on while So I think this brings us to the panel discussion section. We'll be engaging the 4 panelists on the subject of discourse today. So hold on a bit. Yes. So we will have Malcolm, Ronald, Neil, and Ayan to discuss about all the topics they have highlighted. Most importantly, I would like to call on Malcolm. Malcolm, while making a presentation, you made mention of climate change studies revealing further drops in rainfall. Could you think of any possible solution to avert future water shortage?
Well, we have to understand that we're going to see more extreme weather events because of climate change. And like Ayand was mentioning, there's a big issue globally with a lack of stormwater management because we need to have more recharge into the groundwater. And, a lot of the stormwater, when we have these monsoonal rains or a big rainstorm, the water runs off. And if we can have some simple stormwater management, that's really going to help recharge the aquifers, because we know globally groundwater contributes about half of all the water used for agriculture. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but those are some big
Yeah,
picture
that's good.
items.
Yeah, that's really good. So if any of the other panelists is interested in answering or probably adding some points to what Malcolm had said, please, you could just engage. And I'd like to talk to Ronald. Oh, Neil, would you like to
I
contribute?
just make a quick addition to what Malcolm said.
Yeah.
That's very insightful about stormwater management. And I've been working on that for a long time, and I'm really impressed by the integrative possibility of stormwater management as a tool. The problem is it involves so many different disciplines, so many different responsibilities, actors, and all of that. And like in cities, it involves civil engineers, it involves urban planners, involves public officials, and they have to get together and collaborate. And as Ian was saying, water management is as much about peace as it is about in the environmental issues. And so what we have to do is to learn how to make these things happen, in the real world that we deal with. So that's just a quick comment, Kola.
Well, thank you, Neil. Any other person? Oh, okay, great. So Ronald, in the course of your presentation, you mentioned something about the sea level rise, which is also causing extreme saltwater intrusion. So what would you recommend? Like, what could we do to combat sea level rise?
Right. So sea level rise and saltwater intrusion, for anybody who is a soil scientist would understand, it's one of the most difficult things to address, because the only way to deal with it is that you need to flush out the soil, and to flush out the soil, you need water, right?
Yeah.
And if you're going through periods of drought, etc., so generally what we find in the Caribbean, the intrusion is more apparent, both in the water supply in terms of the rivers, etc., in terms of its extent inland, as well as the soils during the dry season. And once the rainy season comes, it sort of dissipates a little bit. So what tends to happen is farmers, for instance, from the agricultural sector will start using or looking at drought-tolerant species. So you have to adapt to the environment, in my opinion. Some things you can't really do anything about, but there are many things that we could address. And this is why whenever the topic of climate change comes up, particularly for vulnerable states, we speak about it as if it's something that is an act of God and we have no control over the consequences that we face. And what we fail to realize that in the last 30 years or however long it is certainly not the climate alone that has changed. Our developmental profile has changed. The manner in which we interacted with our environment has caused it to be excessively different. So my position is we need to be more conscious of the things that we have control of to prevent the impacts or mitigate the impacts of climate change. And just to add to, I didn't want to jump in before, because I know I was probably getting the floor now, but my comment on what Malcolm would have mentioned and even supported by Neil is that, yes, you have to look at stormwater management. I certainly agree. I had a colleague once who, in a presentation, mentioned that he was speaking about Malaysia, and he said water is not flowing out of Malaysia, right? Water is not running out of Malaysia, or Malaysia is not running out of water. Water is running out of Malaysia. Basically explaining that you have all these monsoons where you have so much rainfall, and then all of a sudden in the next season you have no water. So the issue is not necessarily availability, but distribution and management. That's how I see it. And then conservation in terms of, how you use water, as well as alternative techniques like wastewater reuse and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's my response. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. Do you want to add something? Oh, okay, great. Ronald, as well, you mentioned something about the community-based disaster risk management, risk reduction as well. Have you guys been able to weigh the adoption level by the people? Are the people really interested in gathering together to combat disaster in their communities?
Right. So I will tell you, and I'll be very frank about it. A lot of Caribbean islands depend on foreign aid, even for NDCs and so on. They are conditional NDCs, meaning that they will do these things if they get funding from the developed world. Yes, countries are moving towards developing policies, but like we say in the Caribbean, I don't know the European equivalent, but policies is old talk, meaning it's not necessarily going to translate into action unless there's laws and things to enforce it and it's implementable. So many times countries look very good on paper in terms of having policies in place, etc. But when you go on the ground, it's an entirely different story. So for the most part, any Caribbean island that has experienced a hurricane that has wiped out their economies, etc., they respond much better than the countries that have not actually experienced this in the recent past. So, I mean, this is perhaps a very shrewd way of saying it, but sometimes the best way to get people or the best persons who respond to disasters are those who have experienced it because they understand how important it is. Yeah. So yes, I would say there's some level of uptake, but work still needs to be done to build the capacity of our region and to get persons to understand that we need to manage risk and not crisis. And I say that because we get ourselves in cycles of recovery where we are just simply spending funds on getting back to a certain level of normalcy, but not necessarily managing risk in the long term. Yeah.
That's great. Malcolm, do you want to come in?
No.
Oh, great. I have a question for Malcolm. For your case study, I think you mentioned something about the overuse of groundwater for coal mines, right? And so this raises a lot of questions about the priorities given to water use. This desalination unit seems to be a solution, right, as you mentioned. But shouldn't the priorities of water use and the overall water management be more adaptable to other things? What do you think? Like, if we just focus on desalination, could we consider other alternatives as well?
Yeah, that's a good point. There's in these kind of situations where the need for water in this region, for example, in La Guajira, it's so severe and the situation is dire. I mean, we have, the mortality rate is so high. So you're right. I mean, there's different ways you can optimize, you know,
Malcolm, are you there? Oh, I think it might be having some problems with his connectivity.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we're trying to do something quickly at low cost where we can.
Oh, okay. Why will we show? Okay, I can hear you. I thought I lost you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry about the connection, but so we're just trying to do something quickly, and I was just talking about the coal mine because they use something like 3,000, well, 3 million liters of water a day. It's just astounding, and it's really further taking away water supplies from these roughly 300,000 indigenous people. So
yeah, I get it. So Ian, this brings me to you. So what do you think are the possible obstacles that you may face when you plan to implement the solutions that you presented for your project, Ian?
What are the problems?
Yeah, what are the possible obstacles or problems?
Yes, it depends first on each region. And coming from two different countries, I can say in developing countries, we don't have these smart, maybe advanced systems yet. And in developed countries, maybe we have it, but we have another problem. On every study, case study could be different from one to another.
Great. So you just plan to tackle the problems as they come. That's really great. That's a good approach. Neil, you mentioned something about the adoption of digital twins, digital twin applications. So I'm a little curious, like the digital twin applications in the United States require sufficient data, just like in every other region or part of the world. So do you have any information about how the United States government plans to guarantee data management or data availability to implement digital twin? I think we have something like this here in Korea now, where the IWRA actually has started some projects about this. So I'm curious, does the United States government have provision to guarantee data availability for the implementation of digital twin, especially for the 3D modeling part?
Well, it's a great question, Kola, and the answer comes in two parts. First, the demand for data for things like digital twins and almost anything that you need to analyze on a large scale requires a lot of data and more data all the time of different types of data. At the same time, the United States government at the national level is, with the current political situation, has been terminating programs that collect data. And probably this won't go too far, but it indicates that national governments, at least in the context of the United States, cannot be relied upon in the long term to guarantee all of this data. If you go to other countries that are more progressive in overall water management, you can find some integrated information systems, and you find people that are working together to, to come up with collaborative data solutions for intelligence systems and all of that. In the United States, I think that role is evolving back to the state governments are not really good at it, and so it's sort of evolving back to the private sector, mainly the non-governmental sector. So associations can get together on that, and we have research institutes that are doing things like that. But in the end, it's going to have to be some kind of a combined effort. I guess I would close on the question by just encouraging everyone to focus and emphasize the need for continuing data if we're going to be able to solve these water problems. There are a lot of people who don't understand that. They don't want to pay for it, and it's not a crisis, as someone Ronald pointed out a minute ago. And so they just want to put that as a last priority. So that would be my call for action on that.
That's great. That's really great. Anybody want to chip in something?
I could add to that because it's something that is, I guess, close to me and close to the Caribbean region. Reason being is many times if you look at the SDG 6 portal, if you look at most of the international data sets, the Caribbean is not the best in terms of its reporting. And there are reasons for that. Some of it could be because we simply do not have the data collection mechanisms. It's also because many countries, like we were in an era where having data and information, maybe 20 years ago, was considered, I guess, education and knowledge. But we are now in an era where it has shifted. So just knowing something or having access to data is no longer sufficient to be considered, like knowledge. You have to transform that data into something actionable. You have to try to gather the data, collect the data, and use it to make decision making, to inform decision making. The other issue that we have is because we are small island developing states, and as much as we like to say that we are similar, every country somehow collects and stores data slightly differently. So the standardization is also required. So there was an issue where we were trying to look at water consumption during COVID, right? And for some reason, we were comparing two islands, Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados, right? And, when I collected the data, I had all the data from the utilities. Water consumption during COVID at domestic categories increased in Trinidad and Tobago. And I was most confused. I had no way to, sorry, it decreased, right? I had no way to explain this. How everybody was at home, it should go up, right?
Right.
But the issue was there wasn't sufficient metering, so we assumed, well, maybe they didn't collect the data on time and the data they gave us was whole, etc. But you know what the issue was? We categorized schools as domestic. So because the schools were closed, the consumption dropped. And then you had other countries who did not classify schools as domestic, and that created an issue when you're trying to get a regional picture. So it's not just access to data, but having a standardized way as a region to collect and assess. Thanks.
Great. That's really great. Yeah. So Rewa, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for this very much interactive questions that we're having here and dialogue. I'd like to point out a question that we had in the chat box, and it's really relevant to what we're talking about here now, is the access of data and how we're using this data. So I would also like to think about that when we talk about the systems approach, and this question could be posed for our panelists here, that we'll talk about this the systems approach, and when we have this data that we need to collect and how to make use of it, how can we encourage this multidisciplinary and also to these data sets from different sectors in order to build a more resilient or more sustainable solutions. And this question circles back to Tariq's question in the chat box, where he's particularly like talking about the saltwater intrusion due to the sea level rise and the coastal erosion. So how do you foresee the updates to the WEF Nexus tools to better assess trade-offs and impact to hydrostructural properties, if we talk about the dynamic soil characteristics and the pedostructures? So I'm happy to point on this, also the systems approach that we discuss with data. So yeah, if anyone of you would like to respond to this.
Yeah, I could make a quick response about that. And the idea that came to my mind, tracing back to my discussion of the failure of government to solve these problems, because governments are kind of dysfunctional. It's not only our government, but a lot of them are dysfunctional. I'm seeing open source communities of practice that rally around certain things. In the case of data, you don't have as much of an incentive. That's more on the user side of models and methods. But in terms of development of models themselves, you have these user groups that come together and they collaborate and they solve these problems, and they're not depending on government. They work on their problems together. One other quick example beyond the modeling category would be the one about the controlling water loss in pipes. And it started in the UK, lasted about 20 years, and this community of practice developed an approach to use data to reduce water leakage from distribution systems. Those are great examples of non-governmental solutions.
I can also add that
Sure.
it's very important to have data as engineers to study the case of every water system. So we rely on data. If we don't have data, it is so difficult to predict how the water system will behave. So these data will help us a lot, and that's why also it's very important to address this issue to the governance, to the regions, maybe municipalities, to understand the importance of having data and what we can use them later on in our digital twins, for example, to modulate and to understand what diameter of pipes we should put here, or if we should, for example, implement a pumping station there. So it's very important in our studies as engineers.
That's great. Thank you so much for your contribution. So this brings me to one of the questions Neil identified during his presentation. You mentioned that And I think this is going to be a collective one because this affects every single sector of the water resources field. So which stakeholders have the most power to advance the water resources management agenda? So this is really a unique one, and I would like everyone to participate in this. Yeah. So Neil, you can go ahead.
Let me elaborate just
Yeah.
a little on the question.
Mhm.
And I came across this some years ago. As an engineer, I was pushing integrated water resources management. And then I came across a paper written by a political scientist who told me, who wrote that we are arrogant and we're not taking into account the needs of people. So I started studying anthropology and all of those sociology and all those different fields. And I found out that there's a whole world of trying to understand those people so that they can have power and agency and will feel good about what you do. So that's just sort of an introduction to it. So, you know, the others may have some ideas about how to deal with that.
For me, everything is related, so we should combine all the sectors, let's say, to address this results. So it's not just about one point we should work on it, but we should work on all the points together.
I could also say that when it comes to important issues like trust in government, you're not going to have trust in government unless you involve all the different stakeholders. So those of us who are professionals in these fields, we need to have more humility, you know, about working with people and learn a lot from all of these different groups that we interact with, all kinds of stakeholders. I think this is a big area needing attention.
I quite agree as well. I think what has been happening, at least I could give examples from our region, is you have stakeholder consultation. IWRM, as Neil would have mentioned, is a pathway, in my opinion, to sort of have this integrated approach to management of water. Of course, at the end of the day, it's a beautiful concept, but very, very, very difficult to realize because of the number of cross-cutting issues and how many different agencies and stakeholders have to be involved. So for us, what we try to do is ensure that there is consultation at every level and every process. You also want to integrate indigenous knowledge. At times, I think academics and even politicians ignore the fact that, you know, these people that you're supposedly trying to help in vulnerable communities, they have perhaps been living there for decades, and they would have developed their own strategies to cope. And while they may not understand or may not necessarily do it in a scientific manner, there is some merit to indigenous practices that should be translated and joined or combined with conventional academic information. And further to that, I think what you have to do is to give ownership to communities, not necessarily go in and instruct, as Neil was saying, but you work hand in hand with them and get them involved in these sorts of projects where the community itself feels like they are part and parcel of the entire process. And that helps significantly with sustainability of a project subsequent to the funding, whenever the funding from whoever ends. So just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Renner. Thank you so much for the wonderful inputs. Arewa, over to you.
Thank you so much. Would get going because there's so much that we can talk about, and also when it comes to on different levels, if we're talking about the data or but like the policy implemented, or if we need to talk more depth also into the individual level of how we can be responding to these challenges. I'm sure we can go on, and I'm happy to continue this conversation because I'd like to mention that these presentations would be posted online, and hopefully that this conversation is shaping up our conversation that will be also in the Congress. So we still have more time to talk more about this. We're having 1 week in Marrakesh to continue our conversation. So I'd like to thank you all again for being with us here. And I'd like also to see now from our panelists here. Raya, are you still with us? If you'd like to give few words on before we close. If Raya
Yes,
is
yes.
here. Yes.
Thank you, Riwa and Kola, for this excellent moderation. And I would like to extend my appreciation to the panelists first for preparing these very interesting and thought-provoking presentations. And I would like also to thank them for keeping their time because it was a big challenge. And I am very happy to see that these presentations have triggered so many questions and discussion. Hopefully we will see you all in the Congress in Marrakesh. And I would like also to close by encourage all the participants to join our task forces, because you see these are what kind of activities or discussions we can have within the task forces. And of course, the task forces are what their members choose to do. So every possibility is possible. I mean, every activity is possible. And if you want to, if you are interested in one or more task forces, please reach out to us. You can check IWRA's website on the task forces. Don't forget the Islands Water Task Force, which is the last one to be born, is not yet on our website, which is being updated. So don't forget its existence. And thank you all. And hopefully this is the first but not last Inter-Taskforce webinar.
Thank you, Raya. And here we're having the poll still open for everyone that would like to, of course, join the, if you're not yet a member, please, you're always free to also email us with your preference. I'd give the floor now to Arturo as we close this session. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Rewa. Well, it's sad, but we have to close the webinar. It has been a really interesting space for everyone. On behalf of IWRA, I would like to once again thank everyone for this great space, to our moderator and panelists, and to all of you for your interest and engagement. I hope you all found the insights shared by our panel valuable during this special event, and that they have sparked creativity in your own work. If these presentations left you eager to learn more, please visit our LinkedIn page to continue the discussion and follow us on social media for more IWRA updates. In about a week's time, we should have the presentations and the webinar recording on our website. So if you are interested in knowing more about the association or becoming a member, please go to www.iwra.org. I will share it on the chat box. And also we encourage participants to sign up for an IWRA membership. Benefits include the opportunity to join IWRA thematic task forces or geographic chapters. So it's also a great opportunity to be in touch with a network of over 5,000 members from all around the world, among, of course, many more benefits. I am right now sharing with you in the chat box the websites that I have mentioned to you. And also, if you would like to know a bit more, to get more information on the World Water Congress that we're carrying out in December, I am sharing with you the website so you can explore further opportunities that are still ongoing. Having said that, thank you so much to all of you, and we keep in touch, and wishing you all the best, and wish you all a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. See you around. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.